Alright, here we are at the culmination of the Mario retrospective. Since taking on this project for the channel, it's really been a pleasure getting to talk about the Italian plumber and his iconic video games. The NES helped create the foundation for the Mario franchise, so when the SNES released, one of its achievements was taking Nintendo's IPs into the 16-bit era. Zelda got A Link to the Past, Metroid got Super Metroid, and Mario got Super Mario World. After Super Mario Bros. 3 was a critical and financial success, Super Mario World would end up replicating the same magic and create what I think is the perfect Mario game and the perfect 2D platformer. If you ask me which Mario game left the most impact on the series, the answer I would give is this game and Super Mario 64. Keeping things focused on 2D Mario, it's generally shocking how up until Super Mario Wonder, every 2D Mario game tried to be more like the original Super Mario Bros. And that's all well and good. I think the first game is a classic, but honestly, Mario World should have been the gold standard to base every subsequent 2D Mario game. In fact, after Super Mario World, the next original 2D installment would be Super Mario Land 2 and New Super Mario Bros. On the DS in 2006. Everything after that would be remakes or ports on the Game Boys. Now that would be because Nintendo later shifted focus to the N64 and taking Mario into the 3D era. Either way, for this being the last major 2D Mario game on a console, Super Mario World would become, like I said, the perfect Mario game. As for why I think that, let's now begin Super Mario World. To begin, there isn't much to discuss when talking about the development history. It's still the same team of Shigeru Miyamoto, Takashi Tezuka, and Koji Kondo reprising their previous roles. And in 1990, Super Mario World would release as a launch title for the brand new Super Famicom in Japan, and the same principle would follow for the international release. What I found really interesting when doing research for this video was that Super Mario World released on August 18th, 1991, which landed on a Sunday, except the SNES didn't release until Friday later that week, meaning that some fans managed to purchase Super Mario World early, yet they couldn't play the game because they needed to wait for the console to release later that week, which definitely sucked for kids anticipating this game's release, but I wouldn't be surprised this was done as a marketing gimmick to generate hype. It reminds me of modern games' obsession with pre-orders, except unlike modern games, Super Mario World released finished. I think Super Mario World would be the first time a Mario story would create a sense of continuity between games. After Mario and Luigi defeated Bowser and saved Princess Peach at the end of Mario 3, the Mario Bros. And Princess Peach decide to head out on a little vacation to Dinosaur Island, and honestly after 4 games they deserve it. When they arrive, guess who kidnaps Princess Peach along with 7 Yoshi eggs? Speaking of Yoshi, Super Mario World would mark the first appearance of series newcomer Yoshi, a green dinosaur native to Yoshi's Island. His name comes from the Japanese interjection Yoshi, meaning good or okay. Yoshi is one of the Mario cast and video game in general's most recognizable characters, and later on he would get his own spin-off series. Anyway, with Princess Peach kidnapped and the Yoshi eggs stolen, the Mario Bros end their vacation early and once again set off on their new journey. To be honest, I think the first thing I want to get off my chest is how amazing this game's presentation is. Seeing the shift from 8-bit to the 16-bit era really demonstrates the improvements made in the SNES's hardware. Visually, Super Mario World is the best looking game I've played for this review retrospective. The SNES allowed for games to have more detail in their character models and background aesthetic. You'll start playing the first level and all of a sudden, Super Mario World does away with each world being a desert or snow world and instead names each of the worlds after food. This is easy explained in game because the setting takes place in Dinosaur Island instead of the Mushroom Kingdom, and because the Mario Bros are on vacation, the art style goes for a more summer aesthetic. While I do enjoy playing through a beach or lava world here and there, I'm glad that Mario World changed things up because Dinosaur Island is one of the best settings in 2D Mario, and each world still plays into the theme they go for. Now obviously from the gameplay you can tell the levels aren't food themed, that's more for naming conventions. You'll still be platforming over grasslands, caves, and fortresses, but I appreciate when Mario games change up the formula. The soundtrack once again is composed by Koji Kondo, and I think this game is his best work to date. Which is an interesting statement to make because during the development of Super Mario Bros. 3, Kondo would state in future interviews that he had a difficult time composing the soundtrack to match the higher production, but I'm glad to say that Super Mario World didn't suffer the same setbacks. Now before anyone types in the comments, I'm not saying Mario 3 had a bad soundtrack, quite the contrary. But with the SNES being the successor to the NES, I could only imagine the increased resources the Mario team had. Case in point, Super Mario World's soundtrack hits you as early as the opening title screen. Some of my favorite songs are the Cavern theme and the Underwater theme, which I think is the best rendition in the entire series. And I won't lie, the credits theme lives rent-free in my head. Once again, Mario controls the exact same he did in Super Mario 3. You move him using right or left on the D-pad and jump like normally. However, now that we're on the SNES, and because the SNES controller has 4 buttons, Mario's moveset has been updated to reflect this change. Now I don't know about you guys, but when I play a platformer, I always prefer to have the jump button be mapped to the A button. I do it because the simplest explanation is that that's what I'm used to. In Mario World, the jump button is now mapped to the B button, because by pressing the A button, Mario will perform his brand new spin jump. Performing the spin jump allows Mario to defeat certain enemies in one hit, or break the yellow brick blocks placed below you. However, what the spin attack excels at is being able to ignore damage from obstacles like buzzsaws and piranha plants, and if you can master it, it can make certain traps a non-issue. Running has now been mapped to the Y button, and combining it with the normal jump can give you a lot of momentum to cover long distances. The P meter is gone, but it's not a big deal, considering it's pretty easy to figure out how much speed Mario gains at a given time. The standard jump can reach heights the spin jump can't, but that's because you should be using the spin jump to attack enemies or avoid damage. Sometimes enemies will need 2 jumps to be defeated, like the blue dinosaurs or Koopas, who, speaking of, lose their shell and end up exposing their underwear, which is embarrassing to say the least. You can still run up to a Koopa shell to have Mario pick it up, but fun fact, if you kick a shell towards a Koopa facing you, he'll intercept it and return the favor. An improvement made from Super Mario 3 allows Mario to hold the shell as long as possible without worrying about the Koopa popping out. And because you can hold the shell as long as possible, Mario can kick it upwards by looking up and releasing the sprint button, allowing you to hit blocks out of reach or annoying enemies like the Flying Hammer Bros. Also, one thing to take note of, if you're holding an item while underwater, Mario will swim much faster than normal, which is great when you're holding a key or baby Yoshi. You can also use the shoulder button to move the camera to see further obstacles, but you have to be standing still while doing so. The only time I used this was when the game mentioned it in those tutorial blocks, but besides that I never found any use of it. The only reason for its inclusion was because the developers needed a reason to use the shoulder buttons. Out of all the Mario games I've played, I think Super Mario World is my favorite in terms of its controls. Mario definitely feels a lot heavier this time around with the way he jumps and moves. Changing on a dime is much smoother, and it's great if you need to regain your composure. Sometimes in the previous Mario games, there were times I got careless by overshooting or having too much momentum, but this time they're made mute by the fantastic controls. Combined with Mario's new moves, it pretty much set the gold standard for how a 2D platformer should control. Super Mario World once again continues to take the simplicity of the series and evolve it for the SNES. Mario 3 took the formula from Super Mario Bros. And demonstrated what could be done, and eventually once the technology got better, the end result was Super Mario World. Because Mario World isn't constrained to the NES's hardware limitations, levels are designed with more detail in mind, and multiple enemies can be displayed on the screen at a given time. Although it's not perfect because sometimes it'll cause slowdown, and it's only made worse when you have a Starman. Super Mario World's levels add so much more exploration than what came previously. Whenever I enter a level containing a secret exit, I'm always going out of my way to explore the level. And even if I don't find it my first attempt, I'll replay the level and try again. For a series like Mario to have replayability besides its simplicity makes Super Mario World stand out to other 2D platformers. Finding the secret exit always involves you taking a key hidden in the level and entering the keyhole required to exit. The new Boo Houses are a perfect example because they're designed for players to not take the path presented in front of them, but instead have them explore to find the exit. While the Forest of Illusion is designed entirely with secrets in mind because it's the game's way of teaching you to explore the levels more thoroughly. One of the best secrets you can find is the hidden exit in Donut Plains Ghost House, where you'll gain access to a secret area giving you free power-ups and a Yoshi every time you enter. Which is a great segue to start talking about Yoshi. Yoshi eggs will always be placed inside item blocks, and once hatched, Mario can mount Yoshi's back and ride him like a horse. Yoshi can eat enemies and objects, giving you another way of defeating enemies. Eating Koopa shells can give Yoshi certain abilities like temporary flight or a ground pound, but it's based on what colored shell he has in his mouth. That is, unless you get a rainbow shell, which comes in an all-in-one package. If you're hit at any point, Yoshi will run off panicking to the point where he'll fall into a bottomless pit, but hopping back on will calm him down. This part's pretty cruel, but sometimes Yoshi can be used for a double jump to save yourself if you fall into a bottomless pit, and you'll be using that to get one of the secret exits. Yoshi also can't enter Boo Houses or fortresses, but you can take him into other levels, so take that, Mario Wii. While the green Yoshi may be the most iconic of his species, Super Mario World also offers 3 colored variants as well. The color of the Yoshi means that whichever shell you eat, the Yoshi will always get the power-up corresponding to its color, meaning that a blue Yoshi will always get temporary flight even if it consumes a red shell. You can only find them in Star World, and when they hatch as babies, and you have to feed them enemies in order for them to mature. Red Yoshi shoots fireballs, blue Yoshi always flies, and yellow Yoshi can ground pound. And like regular Yoshi, the rainbow shell is still universal. Thankfully, all the Star World levels are very short, so if you want a specific Yoshi, the way to get to them is very easy. Yoshi is hands down one of the best inclusions in the Mario franchise. He gives Mario more versatility when traveling through stages and defeating enemies. To tell you the truth, Super Mario World has the best implementation of Yoshi in the entire series. It feels like after Mario World, Yoshi was relegated to a one-off gimmick in stages. That's more specific for the 3D games, but later on when Yoshi appeared in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, he was only available in specific stages, and that also applied for Mario Wii U, but that game had colored Yoshis with unique abilities. Yoshi in this game can be taken to other stages as long as you keep him. And that's what makes Yoshi so good in this game. He doesn't have the flutter jump or the ability to throw eggs, because those came later. Yet to be honest, Yoshi has more than enough going on in this game. Super Mario World also introduces a lot of new enemies like the Cape Koopas, but the most annoying enemies are the Charging Chucks. Why? Well, for one, they need multiple jumps to defeat, but But in actuality, these guys can't decide on what sport they want to play, and it reflects in their moves. Do they want to play baseball or football? Whatever one they feel at the moment, I suppose. The Koopalings make a return, and once again, they're the bosses at the end of each world. The towers are much more challenging and are filled to the brim with buzzsaws, lavas, and stones that can crush you. The Koopaling battles now offer more variety, with some battles offering their own gimmicks, although no matter what, they'll always go down in 3 hits. You're then shown a cutscene of Mario destroying the tower, and some of these are really charming. My favorite is when Tower 4 is launched like a rocket and it hits a mountain in the background. A nice attention to detail as it shows up in the overworld. I should also mention the fortresses because they technically make a return as well. You'll find them by taking certain secret exits, meant to serve as optional challenges that reward you with alternate pathways to levels. At the end, you'll fight a mini-boss against Reznor, and you defeat him by hitting the platform he's standing on. But you have to watch out because the bridge you're standing on will collapse over time. The reason I mentioned the Cape Koopas earlier is because in Donut Plains 1, after defeating one of them, you'll get Super Mario World's new power-up, the Cape Feather. Now for this part of the video, I like to call it, Why the Cape Power-Up is OP. Because this thing looked at the Tanuki Leaf and said, I'm you, but better. For starters, the spin attack is much faster compared to the Tanuki Leaf, allowing for consistent damage, and it'll be your main method of defeating Charge and Chuck. When sprinting, by pressing and holding the jump button, Mario will begin flying upwards until he stops, causing him to float down. However, if you keep holding the jump button and press back on the D-pad, Mario will fly horizontally, and the trick is to keep pressing the back button at the end of the bounce to keep flying. It does require a bit of a learning curve on your first try, but a good tip is to press the back button at the end of the sound effect when in midair. You can also perform a ground pound, which will defeat grounded enemies on screen. So going off that description, you can see why I would think the Cape Feather's a little too OP. Once you have the rhythm down, a lot of the more difficult levels can be completely cheesed thanks to the Cape Feather's flying. Mario games have always been well balanced in terms of how power-ups impact the overall gameplay, but the Cape Feather takes the piss when it comes to balance. Now I'd be hypocritical to say that I didn't enjoy my time with the Cape Feather, because sometimes using OP items in video games creates more fun for the player. And the Cape Feather was useful in getting those secret exits, or skipping some more annoying levels in Star World. I'm looking at you, way cool. Super Mario World does away with the inventory, and instead you're able to hold a reserve item to use during stages. Getting an item while having one on standby will replace the one you have, so be careful not to lose a better item. Before we finish this, I also want to go over Star World because it's the culmination of Mario World's secrets. While Super Mario Bros. And Lost Levels had secret worlds, you could only access them after beating the game, and in Lost Levels' case, multiple times. Star World, on the other hand, is more accessible once you find the hidden portals. As I said a moment ago, all the levels are very short and you can beat them very quickly. You're meant to find the hidden exits so you can connect all the portals, forming one huge star. After doing so, you unlock a portal taking you to Special World, which houses some of the most difficult levels in the game. The early stages will give you the most trouble. Tubular sucks because you have to hit item blocks with a P-balloon to keep Mario from falling into the pit while avoiding charging Chucks, and I lost many lives in this stage. Way Cool has you hitting switches to keep the platform heading down the right path, but I used a Cape Feather to cheese the level and I feel no shame. Other stages like Awesome have ice physics, and you have to contend with them while Cheep Cheep swarm you, while at the same time doing precision platforming. But the cherry on top is the slowdown after getting the Starman. After that, the levels get pretty easy to be honest. Groovy is the title screen, and Outrageous, the final level, rewards you with a message congratulating you. Your reward is the overworld change in Seasons to Autumn, which is an okay reward. It looks really nice, but it doesn't affect how the levels look, just the map. So with the season starting to change, let's head to the Valley of Bowser so Mario can start enjoying his vacation. As for final worlds go, to get to the Valley of Bowser, you have to first clear a ghost ship in order to open the path. Once you enter the final world, the levels aren't too difficult compared to the special worlds. The Boo House contains the secret exit to the fortress level, and this stage is pretty difficult compared to other levels. You have to time your jumps just right to make sure you're not hit by the falling spikes or plummet into the lava. After clearing it, you're then given access to the back door to Bowser's castle, which will take you straight to the final boss. Why Bowser would design his castle to have a back door is completely idiotic to me, but then again, his castle has a giant neon sign with his name on it, so you can see where Bowser spent his money. However, Bowser's castle isn't designed how it was previously. Instead, it's divided into 3 parts, and at the start you select which path you want to head down based on the number presented. This level perfectly represents Mario World's replayability because your version of Bowser's castle can be entirely different from mine. After the second part, you'll make your way to a dark room with the door to the final boss. If you take the backdoor route, this will be the room you start in. Once the final boss begins, Bowser changes up his strategy this time around, preferring to fly above using his Koopa Clown Car to throw Mecha Koopas or use it as a weapon. When a Mecha Koopa is tossed out, you have to jump on top of it to disable it, pick it up, and toss it back up at Bowser. When Bowser takes damage, occasionally Princess Peach will pop out and toss out a mushroom. Eventually, after 5 hits, Bowser is defeated, and the princess, alongside the Yoshi eggs, are saved. To give my final thoughts on Super Mario World, this game was fantastic from start to finish. The SNES really took the Mario series to the next level in regards to its presentation and gameplay. And for me, that's what makes Super Mario World my favorite Mario game. Out of all the 2D Mario games, Super Mario World innovated the formula more so than Super Mario Bros. 3. After this game, 2D Mario would take a back seat and be relegated to handhelds, because like it did in 1985, Mario once again would revolutionize video games with the release of Super Mario 64. To look back on this review retrospective, it's been a pleasure getting to play the first Mario game, witnessing how the games get better each time, and how their consistent quality is what allows the Mario franchise to remain successful to this day. For now, that's all I have to say on Super Mario World. I absolutely recommend you play this game, and my last Mario video for now. I definitely in the future plan to return to Mario and discuss his 3D adventures, but for now I want to move on to other franchises, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and take care.